Here on Kiwi. Time for the voice of the creative economy. Vincent Heeringa from Ideologue magazine, ideologue.co.nz. Good morning, Vincent.
Good morning, Wammo. How are you?
And good. Today tackling one of the big issues, topics of conversation around the water coolers. This idea of foreign ownership and whether or not people can buy land or even indeed shares, say, in companies like Fonterra.
It seems to touch a raw nerve in New Zealand, the idea that foreigners are buying up land, but in particular dairy land or farmland, which somehow feels like that belongs to New Zealanders, not just in law and in deed, but in our hearts as well.
In spirit.
It's the spirit of New Zealand, the idea that foreign companies might own heartland New Zealand makes us nervous. It makes us nervous for good reasons, but we don't necessarily have the answers for protecting ourselves from that.
Mm.
And the issue in front of Fonterra at the moment. So Fonterra, just to explain, is a company that's owned. It's a cooperative, so it's owned by the farmers. So the shareholders in Fonterra are not on the stock exchange or you and me. They're people that own dairy farms. And the way that you get paid when Fonterra makes money at the moment as a shareholder is you get paid for your milk.
Yeah.
But you also get paid a proportion of your ownership in your payout. So there's sort of two parts to your payout. There's the milk part and then there's the shares part. And but Fonterra faces this difficult challenge where they need capital to grow because they want to be an international company, and they already are by far New Zealand's largest export company. But when you own a big company like that, you need money to grow, to expand markets, to invest in technology and science and marketing and so on. And their problem is that the only place they can get money is by selling more milk, whereas normal companies can raise money on the stock exchange or issue bonds and debts and so forth. That doesn't exist for Fonterra.
So that is a bit of a conundrum. So how could they get extra funds?
So they're making a proposal whereby if you own a dairy farm, it's possible to separate your payout, just be paid for your milk. Still have a share component, but be able to trade those shares between the farmers. And that means that you could own a dairy farm, produce milk, but also own shares in other people's dairy farms. And it's a way of farmers being able to share some of the risk of owning a dairy farm. So they may want to raise some money themselves to grow their farm. Well, they could sell their shares in Fonterra, or some of their shares in Fonterra, to other farmers.
Yeah.
You still have to be, there's some protections around this. You have to be a dairy farmer to be able to buy those shares.
Sure.
Now, the challenge around this is that it's possible, let's say, NZ Milk, which is this, or Milk NZ, which is this Chinese-owned company, has now bought the Crayford farms. The fear is that that company could come in and start buying up shares in Fonterra and own more and more shares in Fonterra,
of course,
and be a foreign-owned company, and that's what sets, triggers a whole lot of fears and an emotional response from people. Because hey, does that mean that even though co-op is this fantastic, Fonterra is this fantastic co-op, is it possible that through kind of the back door, foreign companies could come in,
and those funds would end up going overseas?
Well, they would, yeah, and that's the problem with foreign ownership, right, is that it's a mixed blessing. It injects new capital into New Zealand and gives us access to international companies, but ultimately the profits made from foreign investment ends up overseas. So
from foreign investment we get the short-term gain, but the long-term ramifications of not having a residual income from that portion of land.
And that's exactly right, and it's one of the consequences of being a poor country. So because we're relatively poor compared to, compared to Australia or compared to the US or even compared to parts of Asia, we are vulnerable to being bought up by foreign interests. And at one level that's fine. It means that we have some assets to sell, and what we need to do is continue to produce more assets. In the long term, though...
We can't continue to produce more land, though, can we?
No, we can't. We can't. And the danger is that we become a country full of bus drivers and bartenders rather than people that own assets. But our conundrum is not easily solved, Wammo. You can't just put up walls, you can't put up the barriers and just say, well, we'll solve it by not allowing it to happen, because we still need to grow our companies, we need the capital, we need the growth to be able to own these things. I mean, it's a little bit like, we're kind of facing a mortgagee sale in some ways. And we either sell our companies and our assets overseas, or we continue to borrow offshore. And the conundrum is not an easy one to solve. Anyway, the Fonterra thing, why it's relevant is because you may see it's before a select committee at the moment, because it requires a change of law. And the issue is not going away for Fonterra. It's a difficult one, but right at the moment it requires a change of law. It's before a select committee, and all of these arguments are now being laid bare. And Fonterra itself is really split over the issue. The headquarters are pushing this trading amongst farmers. But a rump of farmers are really leading an action against them, and over the next few days we'll see a lot of this laid out in the press. Interesting,
yeah. Where do you think it's going to head? What you put your money on?
I don't think that they will get the trading amongst farmers through. Actually, I think there's too great a disagreement within the co-op, and they'll need to come up with another scheme. This is the second scheme that Fonterra's tried. And no one disagrees that they need to find a way to raise capital, but the challenge is how do you raise capital without losing control?
Yeah, indeed. Interesting stuff there. Well, you can find out more with Vincent's blog over at idealog.co.nz and Heeringa on Twitter as well. Thanks very much, Vincent.
Thanks.